We'd like to welcome to our studios here at Calabash TV, Mr. Craig Henry, who is not far from us, actually, your office is our neighbor. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund. And there's a huge conference that's happening in St. Lucia in October, which you're getting ready for. Yeah. So I know there's quite a bit happening, and you give us a few minutes to talk a little bit about this conference coming up. Yeah. First of all, welcome to Calabash TV.
Thank you for having me, certainly, Bernard.
Yeah. Before we get into it, I know the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund, along with the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, are involved in putting this Congress together, which is called the 26th RedLAC Congress, taking place on October 7th to the 10th. Before we get into it, just give us a quick idea of what exactly is the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund.
Sure. So the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund, I'm happy to be here, let me say, thanks for having me, is really what is called, it acts like a sustainable finance mechanism. And it is part of a network of conservation trust funds that form what is called the Caribbean Sustainable Finance Architecture, at the core of which is the Caribbean Biodiversity Funds. And in short, what our mandates, we have a national mandate, each of us, to really raise funds to support a grant-making mechanism that we ourselves manage. So what that means is that we provide funds to community groups, government agencies, even environmentally inclined startups for conservation-oriented initiatives, sustainable livelihoods, giving sustainable capacity building for local individuals and institutions. So really and truly, we are a unique mechanism in that we were established to really support or act as a sustainable finance mechanism. The work is, the dual portfolio is equally, I should say, important and critical, given that we have to do an enormous amount of fundraising to, of course, sustain the financing over for all these activities and initiatives, and of course to build, of course, the cadre of community-based organizations and initiatives that can impact the local economy, the community, and of course generate the types of results that we expect when we talk about our own national conservation targets, where you talk about climate change, environmental sustainability improvements in how people use the technologies that people use when we do things like sustainable agriculture. All these little targets that we have focus on when we talk about environmental sustainability, that has to come filtered down to grassroots. And so we're supporting those things. And so that is why when we talk about sustainable finance, the simple way to think about it is that we ourselves have to act as that mechanism that allows those things to happen not only now but into the future. So the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, of course, is one of our major donors, given that we have a partnership agreement with them, but we also establish MOUs and cooperative agreements with other national partners in the private sector, in the civil society sector, philanthropic organizations and agencies, to raise those funds, but also provide technical assistance. I was mentioning that we had recently a partnership with Republic Bank EC, and today we are going to be announcing some of our awardees in our first call for proposals. So it's really trying our best to make sure that we can support local conservation and sustainability initiatives in St. Lucia.
So this 26th Congress, it's historic in many ways. It's the first time it's taking place in the Eastern Caribbean.
Correct.
So St. Lucia has a huge honor of hosting this. And I think you hinted it in one of your responses a while ago in terms of who's attending. It's the Community of Environmental Funds. Talk to us about roughly how many, because we understand there are over 200 people who are likely to be here.
Right. Yes.
Who's coming for this?
So it's really the RedLAC Congress that's held annually. And it's a very exciting time because what it is, RedLAC is a membership that spans Latin America and the Caribbean. And although it has a membership of 29 members, but then there are also 19 countries in the region. Various environmental funds who together we share information, we network and collaborate on a number of our range of subject areas. And that Congress allows us to have that active exchange, in-person exchange and collaborations. So during the Congress, what you normally happens is that, of course, you have the addresses, keynote speakers, but you have a lot of industry experts who can provide, who do presentations. There are question and answer sessions. And this year, especially what we look forward to are those, what we call those breakout sessions or workshops that allow more in-depth exploration in subjects or initiatives that can be very innovative. So when we talk about this year's theme is 30 by 30 by 30, the path to 2030, right away you will understand that we're looking at or focusing on RedLAC memberships, the conservation members' role in advancing the 2030 targets, and that includes, we refer to conservation, 30% marine area conservation, 30% terrestrial conservation. That's the global commitments that have been made. And when we speak of global emissions reduction targets as well. So really and truly, it is providing the forum, yet again, for members to understand where we are, what is happening in our different spheres, what are the opportunities of collaboration and networking, provides the opportunity for even more learning and advancing causes, making those connections that can be important for those particular activities, whether you speak of youth in climate change, which is a very important aspect of it as well, because we have to recognize the younger generation's role in continuing those projects, those global projects or regional projects and advancements that would be vital to the region's survival, so on and so forth. So we have planned essentially a very active and interesting set of days from October 7th to the 10th. Anywhere from focusing on financial mechanisms, you're talking about blue bonds and green bonds. What do those mean for us in the Eastern Caribbean? We are just beginning to have those conversations with regards to how can we diversify our economic portfolio into those areas that the global community is now talking about and supporting in a more long-term but in-depth way. There is also making the opportunity for the collaborations, of course, when I speak of those regional projects or programs of sustainability, of climate resilience, building climate resilience, industry experts who can provide that type of insight to our own experts and to our own groups and private sector, government agencies and civil society. And then on day 3, of course, what we expect is that we look at those case studies, those things that have been happening in our own region, what we do ourselves in fulfillment and advancement of the 30 by 30 by 30 theme, but also what's happening in the Latin American side. And so if it is that there are opportunities for greater collaboration, but for investment, because you also have private sector in there, these are what we want to call the benefits and the advantages of attending the Congress or putting on the Congress, especially in this region. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So give us an idea where it's going to be hosted, and I guess you'll mention it in your answer as well. I noticed that the Sandals Foundation is also involved. What is their role in this?
Okay, excellent. So it's by no accident that the Sandals Foundation came on in a big way. They are the presenting sponsor this year. So although the Congress is co-hosted by the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund and the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, but of course to put on a Congress of this nature, you need support And so Sanders Foundation came in as our presenting sponsor. The Congress itself, over the duration of between the 7th and the 10th, is going to be at the Sanders Grand Hotel Resort. And then what we believe is that there's also going to be an influx of delegates from the various Latin American regions who will be staying at various hotels and accommodation spaces, especially in Grosile. So that would be interesting as well. I would say that, but we do have other sponsors who have come in on the local scene, regionally and internationally. I have to mention Conservation International, of course, but locally we've had Lucia come on board as a sponsor. We have SLTA, St. Lucia Tourism Authority, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, because sustainable tourism is also part of our lingo, or part of our fabric in terms of economic driver, but also because of the increasing awareness and attention to tourism's role in sustainability. We have regional sponsors, a couple of conservation funds have come on board. Project Bridge is a major sponsor as well. That is on the from the Latin American side, and that is receiving funding from the French environmental facility. So take it to mean that there's a lot, given the scope and the magnitude of the discussions that take place at the Congress every year. You do have sponsors, or what I call repeat offenders every year, who would support these important conversations and collaborations. What we would say is that we are happy that they're still on board with us. They have partners with us to continue hosting the Congress this year in the Eastern Caribbean and in St. Lucia in particular.
Considering your target, your conservation target, 30% marine, 30% terrestrial by 2030, which is some might consider a bit ambitious. 2030 is just 6 years away from now. Yeah. How critical is it for this Congress to succeed? Because I suppose a lot of the projects that you are involved with and other similar organizations throughout the region are dependent on the sources of funding, and so it's critical that those funding agencies that are meeting do have some synergy, some alliances to ensure that your programs continue to be funded.
Yeah. So RedLAC, in a sense, that's the purpose of RedLAC, really. And apart from any other environmental network, what you try to do or aspire to is to look at those global targets and see practically how it is that you could coordinate resources, technical resources, funding, even innovative ideas into areas or measures that could help to advance some of those projects that you're implementing on the ground. So I mentioned Bridge just now, the Bridge project. They are enormously focused on capacity building of our members, of the RedLAC members, in order to support various initiatives. There's an ongoing mentorship program that we are, SLUNCF, as a member of RedLAC, going to benefit from in order to provide the expertise and guidance that could help shape and would filter down that knowledge, that capacity building to our local context, because we understand that sometimes you do not necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, but what it is that you have to contextualize the knowledge. You have to see what is pragmatic, what we are trying, what are we doing in St. Lucia that would could benefit from the knowledge, for say, from Colombia, from the Seychelles, that's those sorts of exchanges. And that's important because although geographically we are dispersed, but then we are all feeling the effects of climate change. We are all experiencing biodiversity loss. We are all, many of us, especially the small island states within the RedLAC membership, experience as well what we would call livelihood, the disappearance of sustainable livelihoods that are so dependent on having a healthy natural ecosystem as habitats and so on and so forth. So you want to ensure that first of all you get the best practical knowledge, but you also want to be certain that you can contextualize that knowledge and understand how could that knowledge and technology and innovation fit into our own circumstances. Now, the members of RedLAC also have what we call connections with their national government agencies, and we forward that because at the end of the day, for instance, the SLUNCF does not direct policy in St. Lucia. What we do is that we can provide the environment or the resources or even the technical, provide some technical support that could help to drive those policies along or advise those policies. Or even, yes, we have the policy, but how is going to be implemented in the practical sense? What are the measures that we need to implement in order to make sure that these policies come to some reality and some fruition? Because we understand that it is no one agency can do it all. There is need for the collaboration. There's also need for a really practical approach to how we solve some of our global challenges in the local sense. And the most important thing that I would say is that there is an opportunity for locals to participate in the RedLAC Congress as well. So it's not just about the RedLAC members attending. The registration is open to local stakeholders, and I would encourage our local businesses, private individuals, that they could register. We did create a website for the event. You can go on congresso.redlac.org, and then you can get basically all the information that I'm trying to summarize to you now. All of that is so well put together on this website, but it's also important for the registration process. And of course, the closer we get to October, obviously, that means the time that you have to register is going to close. And because of planning and how it is that the expectations that we have in terms of space and so on and so forth, I would encourage everybody to register now. If you're listening locally, if you're someone who's going to come in to St. Lucia, there is a partnership with Inter-Caribbean as well, because they have come on. Not only are we getting funding, but we are also getting what we call partners, sponsoring partners who can help to facilitate how a successful Congress in St. Lucia. So Inter-Caribbean came in as well as a partner. And I would say that the local hotels have been fantastic. They offer special rates for folks who are coming in from the region or Latin America and so on and so forth, Africa, France. Special rates for them because we recognize that coming to St. Lucia is not quite as affordable as it used to be. But we want folks to be comfortable here. We want them to be at home. So we are doing all these preparations. We are speaking with all these partners to ensure that, people can get here safely, people can get here comfortably, no logistical nightmares and so on and so forth. But it is already looking exciting. I'm telling you, the planning that we are on a crunch right now. We have put together a very progressive agenda, a very exciting agenda, like I would have mentioned. All that information as well is freely available and open. Even the speakers that we are going to be listening to, the presenters, those folks are already listed. The bios are on there. Still finalizing some, of course, but then the point is there is a lot already available to be viewed, and that can be accessed via the website, the event website.
And the website is congresso.redlac.org.
Yes.
Congresso spelled CONGRESO. Actually, we'll post it on the screen as well. So
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Get the correct spelling.
Yes.
So I'm happy that you mentioned that there's an avenue for local St. Lucians to attend this as well, and to avail themselves of all the experts who will be there as well.
Yes.
So just remind us again of the date, the location, the venue for this very important 26th Congress of RedLAC.
Of course. So the 26th RedLAC Congress is going to be from October 7th to the 10th. Free magnificent days of keynote addresses, workshops, presentations, and it's going to be at the Sandals Grand at Grosley. Obviously, what we would like is for folks to register early, get the registration tickets in, but also take some time and understand some of the topic areas, because the agenda is also on the website, and there's some interesting areas. So even if it is possible for you to attend all the days, I would say, because it shouldn't be a partial thing, try your best to make it here. Take an interest in how it is that what is happening on the global stage, what's happening regionally, but also what's happening in St. Lucia, and see how it is that you can fit into that. If it is, you can be part of a workshop discussion, there is that opportunity there. If you want to understand the latest technologies and innovation in terms of sustainable finance, how it is that we are preparing, for instance, get into this whole idea of risk insurance, and that is recovery after major disasters. We had Hurricane Beryl. That is something right now many people are looking for, post-Beryl, a post-hurricane recovery, and we are yet to completely or have a steady risk recovery insurance for the natural environment. Just imagine that. So all the coral reef, I should say, gardenings and coral reef farms, or even established coral dive spots and so on and so forth, those areas would have been adversely affected. People's livelihoods associated with those pristine areas would have been adversely affected. So the recovery is not just on the natural side, but it's also, there's an economic recovery that's associated with it. There's communal recovery as well. So this area of recovery insurance is, again, something that has been spoken about, but to really understand the mechanics of it and how it has worked in other jurisdictions there's also an opportunity for that. And I'm encouraging even our colleagues in the insurance sector to be part of that conversation and understand how it is, so they could be pioneers to see which company, insurance company probably has an interest in taking on that risk, because there are partners who are willing to provide that information, that knowledge, and interest to take that forward.
So it's happening from October 7th to the 10th.
Yes.
At the Sandals Grand. It's the 26th RedLAC Congress, taking place in St. Lucia, being hosted for the first time in the Eastern Caribbean. We will be speaking with you again as we get closer to the day, and it's a very, very hectic time for you, but we appreciate you giving us a few minutes.
I appreciate the time. I appreciate the opportunity to reach out to a wider audience as we move closer. I would also mention that it's not all about business. There's an entertainment part. There's an opportunity for those participating at the RedLAC Congress to see St. Lucia, and we have what is called normally a field trip day. So it's not it is kind of like an official part of the Congress, but this is optional for those who are attending. And so what we have done is we have organized two different experiences. One is a hike of the pitons. Piton hike, that is a very famous thing. Folks who I met at the Congress last year in Peru, that was one of the major things that they really wanted to do. Many of them had not heard of St. Lucia before, just imagine. So the Congress itself is also bringing attention and focus on not only St. Lucia, but what it is within the Caribbean, how we live, and so on and so forth. And so they have identified, some of them have said they're going to bring their families and so on and so forth. What are the coolest dive spots? But then others have heard of the pitons, they've done the research and they have an interest in that. But there's also the opportunity, if you do not have the physical, interest for the hike of the pitons, there's also going to be a catamaran tour for those who want to really experience St. Lucia in a different way, where they're going to go through different sites in St. Lucia, obviously, the coastal marine tour is a big one, popular one as well. Yes.
Okay. So it's all happening between October 7th and 10th, 2024, right here in St. Lucia. Craig, we appreciate the time and thanks so much, and all the best for your Congress coming up in October.
Thank you so much for the time.